What is up, humans and mutants alike? My name is Kyle. We are going back through our old catalog and re-uploading them onto YouTube in what we are calling Podcast of X Classics. So enjoy.
Welcome back to Podcast of X. My name is Kyle. We're with Danny. Danny, what was your jazz name again?
We're bringing back D-Bones.
D-Bones?
D-Bones.
AKA D-Bones.
Yeah, sure. But yeah.
Yeah. And we are talking Powers of X, issue number 3.
It's Nimrod!
You mean that itty-bitty soup can? Give me 5 seconds.
Are you ready for this? You excited?
Trace. Issue Trace.
Yes.
Let's do this.
All right, let's do this. So we start off in X-Men year 100 in the Temple of Cordance, the Church of Ascendancy. And essentially, this priest is like sacrificing this baby straight up to the phalanx, right?
Yeah, it's
Would it be?
Well, I mean, it's like almost pulled out of like a Warcraft setting or something, or like a 40K setting. It's very strange.
Yeah.
This worship of machine and I guess machine to flesh amalgamation is something very akin to like what I would see with like the Empire, different things like that. It's a very nice, especially the aesthetic. I mean, look at his hand. It's robotic, but the other side is more of an organic looking hand.
Right.
Beautifully drawn. Beautifully drawn.
Now, one thing I wanted to point out is that we mentioned last week that essentially the phalanx will either deem a society worthy or unworthy. If they're worthy, they get to reach ascendancy. But if they're not worthy, they're seeded with the techno-organic virus, which is what we're seeing here. Now, but what's the difference? Like, don't they both essentially achieve ascendancy since they're becoming robots? Or does essentially like the collectives that are worried, part of their consciousness gets absorbed into the collective, whereas the people that get the techno-organic virus, they're just drones, more or less?
Yeah, it seems like that's what they were breaking down with like the hive mind concept versus the individual intelligence and the limitations of what you can eventually evolve into through the technological hierarchy. But it does feel like you're getting the raw end of the deal if you're simulated versus woken or welcomed in. It seems like that it's a different level of anonymity versus burden.
There's always a caste system, even in the robot world.
Yeah, exactly. You couldn't escape it. I mean, they're super advanced. They've made leaps and strides, and then just all these new things have come out of this technological advancement. But the caste system held strong. It couldn't break it.
Couldn't break it. Who would have thought? Who would have thought?
I did enjoy the level of fervor behind it because it showed that the crowd was kind of more like riled up into just welcoming it in open arms. I think the kid was just like having a great time. Like the baby has this look on his face that was like,
Oh,
yeah,
he's smiling. He's like, yeah, let's make this happen. Let's do it. Let's party. Woo!
I'm a robot. Woo! Let's do it was a very unique visual representation of what they were talking about in the previous issue and how societies were going to be co-opted with this techno-organic virus and assimilation.
Yes. So then, as this is happening, an explosion occurs, and we're met with the remaining mutants, which isn't too much.
What are you talking about? They got Zorn.
They got Zorn.
That's enough.
He's got.
They got
He's got
Zorn
it.
and Magneto, which that just makes you question things already. What
Yeah,
if
things are
in
going
this
down.
what if in this timeline the big twist was Magneto is Zorn and Zorn was Magneto the whole time?
God damn it! I knew it. I knew it. Uh, that was weird. We touched on that a little bit
We did.
previously,
We did. Or
but that
Magneto's like a third Zorn brother. There's a third. It's just
God, it's so confusing. They
it
wrote
is.
that so they didn't have to, but they did. They chose to make it confusing.
Nope. And they pound him well with like the joke with they're leaning into it by putting Magneto there. I feel that's why Magneto is in this particular situation with Zorn, is that their history is what makes it such a palpable situation.
It's like, see, they're both here together. They can't be the same person, clearly.
Yeah, exactly. We're
And I'm
trying
all
to tell you
like,
that right now.
I'm going, fuck you, Marvel. I know what you're up to. This doesn't trick me at all. This doesn't change my opinion.
Yeah,
Something's going on.
yeah, there's something weird. I never trust anytime Zorn's in an issue of anything. Oh man. And then he's got a crew of like 6 mutants with him, which are in the form of 2 mutants, but they're like amalgam mutants.
Yeah,
These chimeras, which are just delightful in their own right.
yeah, they're chimeras. Now, one thing I wanted to touch on is these chimeras from the future are clearly a product of a certain, let's say, tool that is used in the future that we'll touch on later. Um, I'm trying to tell you without spoiling anything. Am I
I,
leading you on? So like they're the product of like what happens because this tool is used to just essentially replicate an original, whereas it seems like they were able to add a bunch of different people into one thing. This sounds weird because we're getting ahead of ourselves, I guess.
it is, but that also you can throw back really far to even like I would say Age of Apocalypse is a good example. Mr. Sinister in that was
Oh, those could like
essentially
the old school like
yeah.
sinister stuff.
Yes, and you get things like Nate Gray or other types of gene manipulating where they're like, I need to take a little bit of this person and a little bit of this person, and I can splice them with this other person, and we can get a new mutant based off of their DNA and origin. And this is, I feel like this is like a unique evolution on that take, which is pretty common already in existing X-Men mythos in a way, just through a lot of the stuff Sinister's done over the years. So this concept here is playing out in a very similar way. I just like how they're bold with it, where they're like, well, Sinister did like 2 mutants. Well, check this out. This person is like 7 mutants, and we took like the best parts from everyone. It's like crazy. Like they made their own versions of Rogue, where like when Rogue would have like 5 people's powers at once. Like this is like the last remaining mutants are pretty much that.
Right. Ah, that'd be good to have. Or like Gattaca powers, where you could just be like, I want this, and I want this. Make me a human.
But you still wouldn't be tall enough to get that job.
God damn it.
You're just like, I gotta break my legs and then reassemble them longer so I can get this job. Man, future's rough. Workforce is tight.
All right. And then one thing I wanted to point out here is that it shows the surviving mutants on the next page with Hickman's typical charts and graphs, mad scientist approach to comic storytelling. And it points out that Apocalypse is an external. Now, I believe it's always been assumed that he was an external, but it's never been officially proclaimed by Marvel that he was an external until this moment. Unless you know of any moments, but I'm pretty sure this is like a Marvel editorial saying yes, he is an external
Not
officially.
in any like labeling way in this fashion. Not anything that actually depicts him in like an actual mutant diagram and like him labeled external, like in the fashion that Hickman did here. That's definitely not a case. I do know that he's been alluded to and referenced And I guess at one point the whole external concept is weird because they said that Cannonball was an external and the Chamber was an external,
Mhm.
and Chamber started to mutate at one point to look more like kind of like Apocalypse did. It was strange what external meant and how it was used in storylines. And it also didn't really mean like you were immortal in any way. It just meant you could live forever if nothing came along and just eviscerated you. Because there was a whole group of people that were externals, and like I think a few of them just were offed eventually. But
Yeah, but only an external could kill an external. It's like
I,
the one.
is it? I thought it was that anyone could kill an external with enough. I guess if they overcome whatever its mutant defense is. I thought externals just didn't age, they didn't get sick, they didn't need to eat or any of that kind of stuff. Unless I'm remembering this wrong.
I
It could be entirely possible because I know externals were supposed to be kind of like that Highlander-esque character that had that kind of mythos behind it.
This is
That's
according to the Marvel Wiki. Yeah, that's what the Marvel Wiki says.
they said they can't only another external can kill an external.
Yes,
Now do they get their power and become stronger?
I believe so.
Oh wow.
Yes, so it's like the one or Highlander.
Do they reclassify what externals are in a list of like how kind of they did here in Hickman's like writing? Do they break down like they're like these are the people who are known externals
No,
currently?
no, they haven't laid that out at all yet.
Okay, so they
I guess besides Apocalypse.
is he on there right now at the Marvel one?
Yeah.
Oh wow, okay. Well, it's good to know that they're at least keeping up with their current X-Men run. Interesting. Okay. Well, then
Some
Apocalypse.
pages. Yeah, some pages are good. Some pages aren't. Hit or miss.
Let's see later on if they actually expand on that heavily enough, and if any other externals ever become Apocalypse external, and he's like, "I'm cool," and then they're like, "We never bring this up again."
Should we define what an external is? Because I kind of struggle to differentiate it between, I guess, an eternal.
Well, no, the Eternals are like a different type of race entirely. Externals were like more of a classification of mutants.
Of mutants,
Like,
they're
yeah,
sub but they have the same like an external like an internal are pretty much immortal. Eternals are pretty much immortal. They're like mutant Eternals, pretty much. Is what I always got.
yeah. I always just thought, yeah, you could say it that way, and that works. I just thought it was their power set made them at such a level and such a insurmountable durability that they couldn't be brought down by any practical means at all. Like there's pretty much no way to kill them except certain magical or unique other counter mutant powers. Like I can imagine like Omega level mutants could probably defeat externals in toe-to-toe fights. Like you don't think like a Jean Grey or like a Legion. You don't think Legion could kill? I mean, he's killed gods, so they had him kill the old gods. I'm sure he could kill like an external.
Yeah. See, okay, that doesn't make sense. Then, especially even in this, or like what we find out in the future of this, like clearly an external could be killed.
Yeah, yeah. See, you're right. That's true. That's true. Which we touch on, yeah, because that whole snafu kind of makes it confusing. So what is the what is the merit of this? I feel like
No.
this might be something that doesn't get touched on later, but we'll see. We have the blueprints here.
The blueprints here. I hope he elaborates more. I hope he actually lays the groundwork for what because it's so vague. It's so I don't know. Externals. The concept is just very vague. It could be
Yeah.
elaborated. Will it? I don't know. One thing I do know is Marvel Wiki fandom does not know what they're talking about.
That's a bold statement to make, Kyle.
Damn. They're
You're
trying to come after me.
I'm just saying, talking stuff like that's scary. This is a very like I don't know if you're stretching the truth or anything there, but I don't know if people agree with you. Oh, but it's an interesting concept, the external. I really find that kind of a nice little tit, like a nod back to the older X-Men. I guess you could say sub classifications of mutants and over defining of mutants over the years. This is just kind of like, oh yeah, these things are still a thing. But the part that kind of surprised me the most is that so many people were already Apocalypse's horsemen off the bat, and we didn't even know it. Like I didn't even think he had any horsemen. And then when they showed us, they were like, "Well, these are the four horsemen of Apocalypse in this timeline." And I'm like, "Wait a second.
Right.
They were already his horsemen, and that's a thing that's going on." I thought Apocalypse was just kind of like how he is in the current books that are being released now, where he's kind of caught up with the timeline, and like he's just kind of there in the background, less like a imboding force of like, "Look, I got horsemen, and I'm plotting, and this is my game plan." Like, so it was cool to see that he actually did have horsemen, and that
Yeah.
one of them was Zorn, and the other was Wolverine.
Zorn and
That's a
Wolverine, yeah.
classic. That is a classic Apocalypse horseman. Every time
Oh
Wolverine shows
yeah.
up as like usually like death or war, it's great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. And then we cut to Nimrod. And Nimrod's just, he's hanging out. But essentially they're just talking about attacking the church. Why attack the church, right? And he says, in the past, they always sought to free the humans, in some hope that together they might overcome the inevitability of, me. And essentially,
Yeah.
he is. What is he doing here? He's
He's trying to find a way to circumvent what the mutants are doing, and he's at the same time, since he's able to kind of use his intelligence in the same way he uses his reactive technology, he's countermeasuring what the mutants are trying to do because he's realizing they have a game plan that's going to essentially line up with some way to bring him down, and he's going to see that weakness and try to overcome it. But at this current time, the X-Men haven't quite made their intentions known, so they have a bit of an advantage on Nimrod as he's plotting a greater move against the mutants.
right. And then we cut to essentially this. What is it? Rasputin. And essentially they're fighting. They're attacking, and
Yeah, they siege a lot of the techno-arc based human hybridization, I guess you could say, sites of ritual worship. They kind of just show up and cause what is clearly a distraction uh, to anyone who could tell. But they show up and they kind of cause that kind of ruckus to kind of flush out the Sentinel forces, which show up in full force.
oh
Quite
yeah,
well illustrated.
yeah, it's pretty badass. And you just see as you see this like bunch of sentinels, and then like shadows of sentinels in the background, and it's just like infinite sentinels.
Now let's talk on that design. Do you see like the remnant of the old Sentinel like meld perfectly with this newer build that kind of, I don't know if it's Iron Man or what it is, but it has that kind of, I want to say Iron Man feel to
It
it.
looks very Iron Man feel, but yeah, it doesn't feel like it took away anything from previous designs either. You still get
Yeah,
that like classic head for the most part.
yeah,
You
and
get
shoulder
that
build, yeah.
the shoulders build, the light in the center of the chest. Pretty legit. I dig it. I dig it. I'm digging all the artwork that I've been seeing throughout these issues.
Yeah,
For
and
the most part.
yeah, especially the way they use like the classic styles and designs with the modern artwork interpretation. It's not only a nice aesthetic, but it's kind of warming to see that almost nod and appreciation to the classic content.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Silver and Garcia are doing a great job with the artwork. I don't know their previous work. Um,
Yeah, I'm not. It doesn't stand out as anyone I've heard of.
yeah, I haven't seen too much of their stuff, to be honest. So RB Silva and is the artist, and Marte Garcia is the color artist.
Almost sounds familiar, but
I'm
I
trying
can't
to.
put my finger on it. Huh.
This is the research that could have been done, but we chose to just not do. But moving forward.
This is too much. You put too many rules on this now.
Too many rules. Dude, I gotta do research. What are you talking about? I gotta
I do this for
investigate.
I do this for joy.
Right? Come on.
It's not a job.
Trying to get my mutant rocks off over here. Leave me alone as I masturbate in the corner to my mutant desires.
Exactly. That's the only purpose for this. There's nothing beyond that. We can't attribute
Right?
anything important to it. Oh man. Um, but really, that was a good like Days of Future Past moment of just like that unrelenting force of like, look at the Sentinels, look how many we have, look at how established we are in this timeline. Like, anytime a mutant tries to step out of line, we completely just remove that from the equation
Yeah.
with gusto.
And it's always like, because it's always numbers with them. They're so easy and stupid to beat, like we talked about earlier. They're so dumb. But like, millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of them. It's impossible. What is that called? War of
More of attrition.
yeah, war of attrition. So it's like just the sheer numbers of them.
Exactly. They
Are
could never really
madness.
beat them with just the amount of firepower and mutants that they have on hand. And that's how they always end up losing. And they do at this timeline, they're pumping out like with the mother mold, they're putting out more advanced adapting sentinels, so they're reacting to whatever the mutants can pretty much do. So their amazing, over the top, fantastic powers in this timeline don't mean anything because the sentinels can just deal with it instantly. And we got the stuff about like Omega Sentinels, which are really strange even now because every time I think about an Omega Sentinel, I think about that one time that there was an Omega Sentinel that was a part of the X-Men, and it always confused me during like I think it was like around the
Oh
time
yeah.
transitioning in from Grant Morrison to like Joss Whedon writing X-Men. It was like in that little time frame.
Yeah,
It was
it
like
was weird. It was like a
it was like
butler sentinel.
yeah, it was like wasn't it like some Asian woman and she was like part robot, and then they were just like, Omega Sentinel, you're part of the team now. We've convinced you to not be a killer.
That sounds about right. I'm so fuzzy on that. We should do like eventually like some classic arcs. Go back and like
Dude, yeah, let's do the Grant Morrison run and Joss Whedon. Oh, Joss Whedon's run
Joss
was
Whedon run would be
wonderful
cool.
with
Yeah.
like Gifted and all the astonishing X-Men stuff. I would love to get into that.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. But so yeah, that was all a big distraction for essentially what Apocalypse, Wolverine, and Krakoa are doing, which is trying to gather information. And they're trying to get, I guess, like this or this file from these weird glass file things. I don't get their technology. But
You don't know about liquid-based data storage? Come on, Kyle.
oh man, I'm not on that level yet. I'm still using circuits, still
All
using
right,
metal.
man, get with the times.
You're still using processors? What is that? Just silicon based technology? Nonsense.
You're downloading with solids still? Solids? What is that about?
Foolish. But while they're stealing this technology, essentially Nimrod's alerted to the location. And he's like, oh, I got you, bitches. And right as Krakoa essentially gets the information, Nimrod just like essentially just decimates everything around him. And pretty badass moment.
Wait, before you get to that, did you notice when going through the chapters? I've been meaning to bring this up to you for the longest time. When looking through on the chapter where they transition, there's that part where they show Apocalypse from like his head or like from his chest up, and there's like some arc behind him, and there's 2 points in the animation that come up right in center of his head and make him
Uh-huh.
look like Batman. And once I saw it, I
Yes.
couldn't stop seeing it.
I see it. I see it.
You see what I'm talking? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes. Yes, I'm
Okay,
looking right
yeah,
at it.
yeah.
Oh, I can't unsee that. You're right.
Once you see it,
Wow. You think that's intentional? I gotta ask him.
I want to believe. I want to believe.
I gotta see if like the artist, if Silva has like a Twitter or something. I gotta ask him. Reach out to him. Tell me, did you draw Batman on purpose?
DC told me I couldn't animate Batman, and I showed them. Yeah, I noticed that there's just things like that throughout these issues always make me enjoy what's going on here and just this greater story. It's like there's so much nonsense, but even taking time away to just enjoy the artwork, you're like, well, what's going on?
That's great. I didn't even notice that, so I'm glad you pointed that out.
Yeah, yeah. Because once you find it, it's there forever. Oh, but yeah, things start to pop off real quick when they cut over to them, like actually dealing with what's going on with Nimrod and him being actually aware of, oh, the thing I was trying to prevent, I didn't manage to prevent it as well as I thought, and now I'm pissed.
Yeah. He's like, well, fuck, they got my glass crystal shard memory card thing. And he just fucking, it's a pretty badass move. He did like a essentially just explodes everything around him, decimates it. And even like Wolverine is like half naked.
Yeah,
From the explosion.
he's down to his adamantium.
Yeah, in his arms. Yeah, like half his arms off, and it's pretty vicious.
Which I always love that about Wolverine when he gets messed up to the point where he's just kind of like Terminator 2 about it. He's just got the half face like growing back and just like ah. That's
Yeah.
classic. That is one of the best ways to use Wolverine in any story. It's just like how much punishment can we show off in this panel?
Yeah. And then essentially Rasputin, right? Is that the yeah,
the the Chimera,
the Chimera essentially unleashes
their trump card.
her trump card. And while she's doing this, essentially Apocalypse is like, yo, take this crystal shard memory card, Wolverine, and go through this portal. Go inside Krakoa. He's like, I'm not going inside Krakoa. Just go inside.
I wasn't any of that.
It's cold and sticky inside Krakoa. But yes.
I want to be alone, and I haven't grown my arm back yet. Give me a moment, man. I do like it when they're like, "What is our backup plan? Let's pull off Zorn's helmet and just unleash this black hole."
Yeah. Just ripped it off. Just straight off, ripped off his helmet and then black hole. So
another badass moment that didn't make as much sense as I thought it should, because I'm like, well, even a small black hole in like a localized area is kind of something crazy. Like the tiniest black hole is still a black hole. How did this not go like bottoms up? I don't know. And then they just transition quickly, and they're just like, and moving on to the fight.
Yeah, let's cut away. We don't have to explain that at all.
It's just so quick.
Like I feel like everyone should be dead.
Yeah, I'm just like, well, your trump card is black hole. There's really not much that can beat that, but all right. And then they're like, well, that was just a normal move. We just did that to buy time. The black hole was for stalling. But now we lead up to the crux of my problem with this issue.
Oh yeah.
You want to take us into this?
Ooh, okay. So Wolverine goes inside Krakoa to a portal. Essentially, Apocalypse is like, you know what to do with this, and he goes in, and we get to a pretty cool fight with Nimrod and Apocalypse, but it ends in a way that I am unsatisfied with. You are unsatisfied with. In that Apocalypse does not come out the victor. Nimrod wins this fight. And man, I do not think this would happen. I don't well, I guess he's up against like a bunch of them, right? But even
he is.
But still, I think Apocalypse could have won this situation.
And I agree. I 100% agree. And I feel like the black hole situation that went down in front of this was like kind of a bit of a precursor to like, okay, crazy things are popping off, but they're going to get resolved quickly. And you're not going to get too much payoff on these. Because it was a pretty good fight. If the beginning part was just that lead in and the fight we saw. And then they progressed to something greater because Apocalypse is such a momentous force to deal with. They even spent the beginning part of the issue highlighting, oh, he's an external. And I really feel like we got kind of underpaid, or like, I guess underserviced. I wanted more fan service in the sense of Apocalypse just growing big and tossing around. I wanted to see Apocalypse assume a jovial like form of massive scale and colossal might, and just start grabbing the different um Nimrods by hand and start chucking them around while like reciting Shakespeare like he used to do proper back in the X-Men animated series, that Apocalypse that just took no like gruff from anyone and was happy to show you why he was like top of the mutant food chain. And in this, it's like we never really got that moment where he punched through one and like it was like okay, and then they defeated him pretty fast and just kind of just swept it up really quick, and it was underwhelming. I really felt like they should have had more fun with this. They should have took it to a farther point. I know maybe they were worried about distracting from the greater over under of the storyline that they're trying to tell the story about, and that this was supposed to be more of like an espionage Rogue One style mission of like no one's coming back alive, but they did not pay off on the Apocalypse fight. Even though there were a bunch of Nimrod, sure, make him fight like hundreds of Nimrod. Make him fight like a giant
Yeah,
amalgamation. Make all the
I
Nimrod
want to.
have to fuse together to make a giant Nimrod to defeat Apocalypse.
Oh, that'd be
Oh,
cool too. I just want to see like a
yes.
Nimrod, or I mean a an apocalypse like the size like up in the stratosphere that huge, and just you see billions of Nimrods just like overwhelming him. Then I'll be like, okay, okay,
And
that's
that's
badass.
that's justice right there to Apocalypse, because
Yeah,
this was just too quick.
yeah.
I
And
mean, you have
Apocalypse said
throwaway
nothing.
Magneto nonsense, but
Oh yeah,
not
yeah.
Apocalypse. Not Apocalypse is better than that.
Yeah, and Apocalypse says nothing this whole time. Nimrod's the one like doing most of the talking. He's even like, "How sad it must be to know that natural selection has brought you here." And Apocalypse says nothing the whole time, and he just goes out.
What moves does he do except I punch? That's why I made the joke last time. It was like he seemed like the Hulk. He was like Apocalypse smash, and then that's all he's got. And then they bested him. It looked like he did like a cool maneuver, and he looked very intimidating. But it didn't really follow through with anything after that, and just kind of moved on. And I'm like, whoa, that sucks. All right, whatever. Still like it. I enjoy the story. I enjoy where we're going. But damn, like what? There's time. Apocalypse still there. I mean, he's still relevant to a greater story arc. So aside from this timeline, things are different. But you look at it another way, Apocalypse still has his moment to shine. So I'm gonna hold my complete jadedness from this scene for some time now. I'll see how the story plays out.
Yeah, yeah. You're a nicer person than I.
You're already writing an angry like email.
Yes,
You're like, someone's
I'm
gonna get
already
this. I don't know who, but they'll get it.
I'm already doing the change.org petition.
Oh yes, yes. Can we get 2 more Apocalypse panels in Powers of X issue 3, please?
I just want to see him grow to the size of the Earth. That's what he
Yeah,
deserves. Have my Patton Oswalt moment in Parks and Rec.
yeah. And then that's how we tied the MCU to the Star Wars universe. It's the Thanos glove. That was great. I love that part. That was the best part of all of Parks and Rec. Have you ever seen the extended one of that?
I think so. Yeah, it's
There's one where
ridiculous.
there's one where they let him just
Just
improv
go
until
off.
he
Yeah,
runs out of like content and he's out of breath. It's pretty good.
yeah. I think I totally saw that. All right, so moving on, Apocalypse dies, and we cut to Wolverine meeting up with Moira, and this is where you find out that Mother Akaba was Moira the whole time,
Yeah,
which is pretty cool. Um,
not
so
racial or not any of the people that they kind of you could easily assume because of like Days of Future Past stuff or like kind of older storylines with Cable. This was just like, oh no, it's Moira, and you're like, whoa, that's a twist. I like that. Because you wonder where she was. They showed you the storyline in the previous issues, the way they referenced to it,
Yep.
and they showed her fighting alongside Apocalypse. So you're like, what's going on here? Where's she at? Now we get kind of brought up to speed on this.
And she's in like a weird like stasis, I guess.
It's the pod I told you about.
Oh
Remember?
yeah, the
They
pod.
have a pod for Moira where they only break her out when they need her.
Yes. Put her in the pod.
Yeah, we gotta save her. Gotta keep her fresh when we need her.
Now, this is the part that I'm interested in is the method in which Wolverine gives Moira the crystal USB drive thing, and he just shoves it in her chest, essentially.
Through her
Uh,
crystal USB port, I think. That's
I
what that's supposed
guess. What is
to
so I'm
be. Yeah.
curious, is that like, does she get like apocalypse powers? Because this is her in her apocalypse cosplay right now, it looks like.
Yeah.
She has the tubes in the back and everything.
Yep. The weird like blue skin and the dark lips and all that. Yep, she's Apocalypse Moira. So I guess she's like maybe part synthetic android and part mutant or part celestial android, I guess, because using the celestial technology is how Apocalypse is like ascended to his more advanced mutant form. So
Hmm.
she's probably got some sort of onboard nano machine that kind of can downgrade the technology. I imagine those crystals are probably like, since they had that liquid, the crystals are just a solidified form of that liquid, and what happens is they melt it back down to its nano liquid state, and then she just absorbed it maybe through her pores. I don't know. I'm just free thinking that one. It's still pretty radical, but that's as close as I can walk that one to what I think they did.
And it goes into her bloodstream, and she poops it out in 3 days.
In 3 days it'll pass her. Yeah, osmosis. Oh, good times. And then we get that iconic shot. That's like the throwback of like Wolverine has always got to like kill his women the same way.
Always, always. So essentially, Wolverine's just like, I'm sorry, and Moira's like, it's okay. I have what I need, and this is what you need to do. And then you get that shot, that silhouetted shot of Wolverine stabbing a woman.
Just like he like literally the same, like I guess you could say choreographed outline that he did with Jean Grey in what was it, the Dark Phoenix Resurrection Saga, where she came back, I think, for the second time or something. I don't remember. The
Yes.
time Wolverine stabbed her like this. It's pretty much the same. It's the same silhouette. Except when you
Yeah.
think about it, like that's kind of a painful way to kill someone. You're not gonna die right away from like a stab to the stomach. Like you might bleed out pretty quick if he hits enough key arteries, but I don't I don't think that's the quickest way to murder someone. I think it's kind of being a dick right there.
Right? He better like this better. He better like cut up and like rip her like in half or something.
Like go to the head or something, like puncture right through her like cerebral cortex or something, like
Yeah,
just
make it
take her out.
fast.
Yeah, like quick, fast, and like just boom, done.
Nope.
But instead he's like, "Sorry, I got to do it this way," and she's like, "What's wrong with you?" And he's like, "It's so iconic. Come on,
It's my thing. It's what I do.
it's my iconic like murder pose. You're killing me here. Like I don't know any other way to murk people." But yeah, still a fun nod. I'll give him that. It's just it's fun looking at those things and going like, you know what, Wolverine, you're being a dick. You really cared about him, you would have killed him a different way, but fine, man.
Right?
You do you.
You do you, Wolverine. You do you. And so ends the ninth life of Moira.
So the life of the wife was ended by the Wolverine knife.
It was ended by the. That's great.
Good times.
So that ends this issue, and we end with a quote by Apocalypse. And should forever end, let me die in battle, surrounded by my fallen enemies, with blood on my sword. You didn't have a sword. You didn't have your friends by you. They all went inside Krakoa, or they died by Zorn's black hole, I think. I don't know. They cut away.
Yeah, yeah, you don't get to find out about that. That was as impactful as Apocalypse. So he didn't have a sword. He could have made a sword. I've seen Apocalypse make a sword out of nothing, out of like nanobots, and wield it like a badass. He could have done that, but no. Could have made a giant Mega Man style Buster Cannon and just vape maybe all the Nimrod right in front of him, but you know. punch.
Yo, punch the fool.
Apocalypse is like, I'm gonna use my strongest attack, my right hook. Oh man, I I'm starting to like have a love-hate relationship with this treatment of Apocalypse. Like I hate it, but I see the poetic irony in it all.
Right?
The tragedy of the underuse of Apocalypse, but I don't know. I mean, if you really want to classify something as like a tough situation and you want to use that as a way to measure it, then I guess that's fair. Because you could say like these aren't just any Nimrod; these are such powerful Nimrod that only like 4 or 5 of them are needed to completely beat Apocalypse. But
Right.
what are you gonna do? I'll accept it. I'll accept it for now.
For now, yeah, for now.
For now.
I won't accept it forever.
If this arc ends like completely, like if Hickman's run comes to a close, and I don't get that Apocalypse like throwing down at like gigantic size moment, I'm gonna feel robbed, and then I'll start my petition.
Your change.org petition.
Oh yeah,
It's time.
rewrite
It's
just
time.
Apocalypse's role in all House.
That's funny.
Oh
And then, so moving on after the quote, we have essentially a chart of the ninth life of Moira, and it shows essentially her timeline,
yeah,
more or less. So, year 42, the Apocalypse War begins. Year 45, Avengers World defeated. Year 50, Nimrod comes online. And then essentially, Cracker was destroyed in year 56. And then, okay, so here we go. The first generation of sinister mutants. So I'm assuming these are the chimeras, right?
Correct,
No, wait.
yeah.
So yeah, third generation of sinister chimeras. So yeah, this is totally harking back to old school sinister here.
Yeah. And the nice thing is this is all expanding on the already given timeline graph from I believe it was House of X Part 2
Hmm.
that we touched on not too long ago. So this is kind of nice to see that okay, we do understand what happens at the end of this timeline, and we do get why this timeline is kind of a little more advanced and confusing because you're thinking, okay, wait, how is Apocalypse here? How are the humans this far along? This doesn't seem like it has anything to do with the current stuff that's being put forth in the timeline that they're trying to portray it in. And then we get that cap off, which is perfect because then you're like, oh, okay, I see where this timeline fits. Still don't see where the sixth timeline fits, but I see where this fits.
Right.
Which is nice. I can live with that.
Yeah. Same here. So that's the ninth life of Moira, more or less.
In a nutshell.
In a nutshell, yeah. Any standout moments in this issue that you enjoyed?
Zorn Black Hole Head was cool at first, but completely became
Right.
irrelevant fast. So, I mean that went on, it was not great, but when it happened, it was pretty cool.
This is definitely an issue where like I thought was a badass issue the first read, and like the more I read it, I'm like, wait a minute, there's a lot of weights. Wait a minute, I have some questions. I have some questions. Push his glasses in. Insert nerd voice. I'm ready. I'm ready to answer all of said questions about X-Men. I have so many questions to the editor.
Exactly. We've got problems here that need to be addressed in stat.
Yeah.
Oh, and the Wolverine moment where we had the classic throwback to like Wolverine's battle damage revealing his inner adamantium. Like that was probably
cool.
my favorite, one of my favorite moments. And the Sentinel, the remodel or the redesign of this timeline Sentinel reveal. Like that was a cool point too. Yeah. At least a cool visual aesthetic. The Wolverine thing, that's nice. That brings out the true X-Men fan in me likes that when it sees that. It's just like, oh, that's delightful. That
Yeah.
is how that character is how it is meant to be written, like gritty. Yes, do not make Wolverine a school teacher, please. Like put him in these situations. Step away from
Exactly.
that stuff. I don't want to see Professor Logan. I want to see Wolverine. So I appreciate that stuff. It was a good issue. It did feel more fulfilling than I could say some of the other issues to come. Like
Mhm.
for example, like Powers of X, like that one. When we go over that, that's going to be one of those. Powers of X issue 3. That one's going to be, or
House of X,
House of X
yeah.
issue 3. That one's going to be a little less fulfilling as you would expect. Building block story, but this one, it had enough payoff. I had enough payoff, not so much in the Apocalypse realm, but in the House of X story and the Powers of X story, it felt good. It felt like a good progression.
I agree. I definitely agree with you. And so that will do it for this week, I believe. And next week, we're going to be doing House of X4 and Powers of X4. And what happens in those issues? We see, okay. So we see the fight. We see the conclusion of the fight on Orcus, on our crazy talking master mold that won't shut up.
Yeah,
We see the completion of that, which is a pretty. There's a lot of epic moments, so that should be
Yeah.
fun. That's going to be in House of X issue number 4. Powers of X. We're going to learn more about Mister Sinister and how he plays a role in all of this. So that should be fun.
a Sinister written in a way that none of you have ever seen before.
He's so weird. It's
Get
so,
ready for that.
It's I don't get it. I'm confused at the choice, but it is different. It's different than anything you've seen from Mister Sinister, at least in tone.
Yeah, yes,
For the
exactly.
most part.
Tone
I
is
mean,
is something different.
He's still cloning people. He
Yeah.
does that thing. He does what he do.
Same Sinister, new smell.
Yeah. But yes, that'll do it for this week. And we will catch you next week on Podcast of X. Catch you next week. Peace.
Thanks for listening. If you like this episode, we are going back through our classic episodes and uploading them onto YouTube in what we are calling Podcast of X Classics. So be sure to be on the lookout for more classic episodes. And be sure to check out freespeechgeek.com.